Hey everyone, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. And today I want to talk to you about a tool to keep you humble and to give you instant perspective in your mix. Because if you want a good mix, then you don't want to fool yourself into thinking you're already mixing a good mix when in reality, to the rest of the world, it doesn't sound good. You want to deliver something that sounds good. You don't want to just pump up your pride, right? And think you're doing a good job. You want to know you're doing a good job. And honestly, the best way to know you're doing a good job or a poor job is to compare your mix with something that is already professionally mixed, something that already sounds good by the world's standards, or at least by your standards, something that's done by talented people, mixed with by professionals, mastered, released to the world, is deemed satisfactory, and you like that vibe. It's called bringing in a reference track, and boy, oh boy, is this talked about a lot, and nobody seems to want to do it. Nobody seems to care that this is really, really good advice. And if you want to keep making bad mixes, then just might as well pause this video and skip it and go on with your day. But if you want to improve your mixing, and hopefully you do, then you won't start buying more plugins. You'll start paying attention to what other professional mixes sound like. And I have to do this all the time. I wanted to show you a quick example today in a mastering session just because it's simpler to show you, but the concept applies. The idea is this: you simply want to bring in a finished, polished mix of a song that you think is excellent, that the world has agreed is excellent in the sense that it's made it through the checklist, it's professionally released, and it's probably in the genre or the vibe you're going for. You want to do this in the mixing stage while you're mixing. This can be as simple as having iTunes open and flipping your input feed to your iTunes track to listen to what that sounds like on your speakers or headphones, and then flip back to your DAW and go, okay, this is what my mix sounds like. Or you can also do this in the mastering stage, which I'm going to show you the example here in mastering. But I want you to pay attention to what is it you're actually listening for to get this instant mixing perspective. And there's a great example on a song that I was working on recently. Okay, here is a song that we've done. It's a cover song that we were doing at church, so it's a live recording. And we play it to the exact same tempo that the original studio recording and the original artist does, which is helpful for this example because I can show you our mix versus the studio mix and flip back and forth, and they'll be at the same point in the song. And what I want to show you is how I can lose perspective quickly and how listening to a professional track, in this case, it's the exact same song. That's not usually the case, but it can give you some perspective. So listen to my mix, and then we'll listen to the good mix.
Prophets proclaim to our fathers long ago.
Now the good mix.
Prophets proclaim to our fathers long ago.
Instantly, I'm thinking, dude, my mix sounds way better than the professional mix, the one that I thought I loved. Where did the bass go? I have some kick and bass in my mix, and it's even a live recording on a small stage, and their mix in the studio's got like no bass. That would be a mistake. That would be a loss of perspective in my part. That is the problem when you mix in isolation, when you're just mixing your own material and you're not referencing anything from the outside world within your studio. This has happened to me countless times, and this is just the most recent example. So I'm mixing this song, and I've already got it mixed down. This is now a stereo mix. I'm thinking, this sounds good. So the first problem here is that I didn't reference this track while I mixed it. I just did a quick mix, said, yeah, it sounds great. Clearly, there is way more bass in my mix here than the studio polished mastered mix here. Now, I've listened to this particular mastered track from the real artist many times on many situations just for pleasure, and I enjoy the mix, and it's a mix that I like a lot. So I know it is a balanced mix that I find pleasing. So when I compare my mix to it and I think that there's something wrong with the good mix, I have to realize, okay, no. It's actually the opposite. What's wrong with my mix? Well, we heard it. It was bass. Take a listen to some more. Here's my mix again.
Turn and see your King. There is one God over all kings and rulers, and He reigns.
All right, so a lot of differences there. The biggest one I notice is there's way more bass in my track and a lot less cymbal action in my track than the studio track. So really quickly, I want to show you what I did in this example to try to remedy that. Because if you hear the disparity, you have to do something about it. Now, I'm in a mastering situation, so let's assume that I can't go back to the real tracks and I was just given these tracks and I'm referencing them. All I wanted to do is pull up an EQ and make some subtle adjustments to my track. This EQ is on a bus, but I don't have the reference track going to this. So these plugins are only affecting my mix. And take a listen to how this sounds and see if it's any better, and then we'll discuss it really quickly.
Turn and see your King. There is one God over all kings and rulers, and He reigns alone.
All right, so it's much better. It's not perfect. You know, this track that I'm mixing was done live on a small stage by people who were covering the song with fewer mics and options. And this song was done in the studio, and it's amazing. And it's been mixed and tweaked. And so I understand I'm not trying to recreate this song. I'm just looking for perspective. This track tells me that I know that it's got a good balance, so I can trust that as my benchmark. So what I did really quickly here to give you the idea is I simply used a little bit of notch out at 120 hertz. This is 120 hertz. I took out about 4 dB. That's my biggest cut. That's a lot, especially in mastering. I just had over-cranked the bass on this track, so I notched out a lot of the low end. Also, on about 500 hertz, or 0.5 kilohertz, another very muddy region, I notched out 1.5 dB, okay? And this was at a pretty tight Q, so this is just like a little teeny notch. Then over here, I've got a couple of little boosts. At about 3.5K, I've got a 1.5 dB boost to bring in some mid-range bite that might be missing in my cymbals. And at 8,000 hertz, I've got just over a 1 dB boost to give me a little bit more shimmer in the cymbals. So I've cut out some frequencies that were low and muddy, and I've boosted a little bit on some shimmery stuff. And what that has done is try to take my mix and correct it as it were. Let's listen back and forth to the mix with and without the EQ.
There is one God over all kings and rulers, and He reigns alone.
So it gets it closer, gets it in the ballpark, but here's the idea, everyone. Please, 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 please reference tracks. Do this for your own sake. Don't do this for me. Don't do this to impress anyone, because it's not impressive and no one will know and no one will care. But what will matter is what kind of mixes are you turning out. So if you're in the mixing stage, which is the most ideal place to start this process, please bring in a track. You can do it either, like I said, in iTunes or something where if your audio interface can double as your sound card on your computer, you can flip back and forth to either stream and try to level match so you're not confused or thrown off by the louder mastered tracks. and then use that as a balance to go, oh, what does the bass sound like? What does the mid-range sound like? My track has way less bass than that track, and it'll give you some perspective, at least to what good tracks sound like on your speakers in comparison to your tracks. And then you could also drag in the track to your DAW like I've done here, even in a mixing session, and make sure that it's not running through your bus compression and all that kind of stuff. So maybe set up a couple of buses, one that your mix goes through, and then have your mastered reference track just go right at your speakers. Different DAWs allow you to set that up differently. Or at least finally do this in the mastering stage to make any final EQ or compression tweaks to just adjust the balance of your mix down track to be closer in the ballpark of a professional master that you like. Okay, that's it. That's how you get an instant mixing perspective to make sure that you aren't cranking out something that you think actually sounds good when it doesn't sound good. Hope that helps. Again, this is Graham at therecordingrevolution.com. I will see you on another video.